Hi, I'm Sio Hernandez, and welcome to Connect. You may have heard Marin be described as the healthiest county in the state, but did you know that we're also #1 for binge drinking? Today we'll hear from a school principal, a drug and alcohol counselor, and 3 youth that'll talk about their concerns and experiences with youth who drink to get drunk. As you watch today, I ask that you pay attention to your own behaviors. Are you a young person that parties too much? What happens when you do? Are you an adult that makes it easy for youth to get alcohol?
It's definitely a prevalence of binge drinking between 9th and 11th grade, and an increase, dramatic increase.
It's definitely not a problem with education. I think that we have a great education system, especially around alcohol.
Most students or kids they don't foresee things, they don't think of the future to make scenarios of what could happen.
Which is why it's so important to address this problem today and in the future to prevent the enormous costs that binge drinking is having on this community.
Like I did have to tell someone, about drinking and my experience with it. I would tell them the stories that I've been through, and how it changed my life, how it changed my friend's life and my family's life.
As a community, as a society, we're presenting images to students, to young kids, that they're celebratory of excess.
Alcohol is is a social thing, that's why people drink, but it's also it could be like a curse in a way.
That excess relates to students getting into trouble with alcohol. It relates to students ending up in the emergency room. It relates to date rape, sexual assault on young girls and boys. We sometimes want to focus on the girls, but it also happens to boys too. And so we have this problem, and the problem is manifest in the way we present ourselves in terms of our relationship to alcohol. We present ourselves in relation to substance abuse. It could be said that this part of California is pretty permissive, and as a result of that, we have some issues that we need to deal with because students are being hurt. We see students going into rehabilitation programs at an earlier age, students in desperate trouble with substance abuse issues, whose failure at school is manifesting in their abuse problems. So yes, as a community, we should be wildly concerned about what the cost of this is, not only in terms of emergency room time, but in terms of the failure of students to get themselves properly educated so that they're moving on supporting the community.
I think the main problem comes from the social norms and the social pressures coming from not just the peers and the youth, but I think we also get a lot of social pressures coming from the media.
It's really a confusion that we're setting forth for kids. And that part of that confusion is, on the one hand, we promote having a good time associated with alcohol.
Just living in Marin, we go to a bunch of different events, the street festivals and everything, and you see alcohol there, and from a very young age, it's just ingrained in our system and in our minds, and it's really just become a very powerful social norm.
Every sporting event, every event that we see, the success of the movies, Hangover, we look at that kind of messaging and what it means to be grown up. We look at poor behavior on TV, Jersey Shores, people making enormous amounts of money being rewarded for their poor behavior. I think that's a confusing message. I think parents need to be aware of their responsibilities, the idea that the game has changed. I certainly grew up in a culture where drinking was part of that culture, but it was also part of being responsible. That culture does not exist today. Today, the culture is one not of social drinking, but of almost binge drinking. And the idea of drinking, for what reason? Drinking to get drunk, drinking to passing out. I was up in Sacramento not so long ago, and I watched 3 young ladies, probably of drinking age, but they came into a place, they ordered large shots of brandy and Cokes, and they threw back the brandy as quick as they could, screwed up their faces, and then gobbled up the Cokes. And I'm thinking, what is that they're doing there now? That's not the kind of social drinking that some of us as adults remember or grew up with. The game has changed, and so I think for parents, they need to be observant. They need to be careful about the message they're sending, what it means to have a good time. Can you do that without alcohol? And to constantly sort of monitor the behaviors of the students. If kids are getting up in the morning, can barely get out of bed, that they smell of alcohol, the chances are then they are part of a problem if they don't address that.
When I work with the kids, I try to get their families in because the parents are a significant part of the problem. So they can also be part of the solution.
I actually got a lot of help from my mom.
I think everybody should really take time to really talk to their parents, you know, not just sit there and be like, how are you? Good. Okay, good. Give me something, you know.
They should certainly talk to their children about their issues, to talk about what it means to be part of a family. And part of a family means not getting up in the morning where you can't participate in family life. I think it also, for them, means contacting counselors to talk about what resources are out there. I think it also really depends on them contacting the friends of their friends and saying, hey, you know what? I noticed my kid's really not doing so well. I'm concerned about their behaviors. Have you noticed something similar? And if you have, what can we do about that? What can we provide for these kids that says we can be out and about having fun and it doesn't involve substance abuse?
There are parents who do know what's going on, and those parents are actively involved in their kids' lives. They have good boundaries. There are rules at the home, and they enforce those rules. And then there are the parents that, you know, may just be two parents are working, you know, two jobs. They're just trying to make ends meet. They're dead tired when they get home from work, and they're not really aware of what's going on. And then there are the parents who are not aware of what's going on because they too have problems with alcohol or other drugs. So one of the things that impressed me with working with these kids is that they had the ability to make changes, significant changes in their lives.
To me, it was more, I think I'm improving my personality when I do it. But in the long run, I realized that it was actually the opposite. I started feeling more all depressed.
Depression and anxiety plays a huge part in a lot of these young people's lives, and they use alcohol and other drugs to self-medicate.
And I actually had to step out of myself and look at who I was hanging out with.
Helping them connect their drinking with the negative consequences in their life was huge for them.
The friends that I thought I had that just wanted to hang out with me were just there to get like my alcohol because it was always at my house, and they would basically use me.
A lot of times their social situation with their friends were not necessarily that it was based on their drinking activity rather than other ways to, you know, connect with kids. If you have the ability to be able to connect with kids and work with them either one-on-one or in groups and get them the information and also help teach them about helping other kids, that you can change the social norms, you can change the culture, but everybody needs to be involved.
It's like one of my teachers told me, she said, life is like a Y. You have two roads, you know. It depends on which one you take, will lead you to another Y. So I decided to take this road, this Y road that will get me to my family, get me to how I want to be as a person, the example I want to set to my kids, to my little sisters, you know.
Thank you to all our guests for investing in our youth. I hope you listened to Gabe, Zoe, and Oscar when they talked about their own experiences. It really struck me when Oscar talked about his choice of roads, his why that he chose for a better future.
Life is like a Y. You have two roads, you know. It depends on which one you take, will lead you to another Y. So I decided to take this road.
I hope you'll do the same. If you're an adult, I hope you'll take the time to listen to our youth, to watch for warning signs, and to spend time with them, whether they're related to you or not. Thanks for watching Connect. I'm Sio Hernandez, reminding you to listen with all your senses, know your communities, and connect.